morning, good afternoon, good evening. From whichever part of the world that you are, welcome to the second roundtable at the RISE PECOWorld Summit 2026. The topic today is based, of course, on the theme as well, which is partnerships, a very critical part to building ecosystems and solving the wicked challenges that we face in our world. We have today with us a really wonderful panel of people who are experts, but even beyond experts, have got the knowledge, the experience, and above all, the wisdom of their experience that helps us in understanding deeper issues that we need to think about before we can even start looking at solutions. So thank you very much all for joining with us. May I have the poster, please, so that we do have everybody's name up front. Yes, do you have that? Yeah. Great. So we have with us, as I said, amazing thought leaders with a lot of experience, with a wealth of experience, and we are going to look forward to having a wonderful discussion around this. Of course, we begin with Mr. Lokendra Thakkar, who is the Coordinator State Knowledge Management Center on Climate Change. He's the Environmental Planning and Coordination Organization of the Government of MP and has been really spearheading so many initiatives from there on environment. And we will, of course, hear more on that. Sudarshan Suchi, who is the Chief Development Officer at Reliance Foundation, Dr. Sudhir Kumar Goel, an ex-IAS officer and a partnership expert, Dr. Naman Gupta, who's the State Project Manager, UNDP India, Dr. Parag Amin, who is a LinkedIn top voice, and also, of course, an academic leader and consultant with the Atlas University, and Subhash Panikkar, an OD consultant and technical advisor across multiple sectors. Thank you. As we know, as you can see from this, the names I've just read out literally cover the whole spectrum of government, industry, civil society, and academia. The four key stakeholder groups that we believe are extremely important in everything we do. And very often, right through this RISE Summit of 13 years, this is our 13th year, I would always tell people whenever we would talk about sectoral issues and solutions, I would always ask them, is there any one of these stakeholders missing in your project? And if that is the case, then go back to the drawing board, find a way to bring them in, partner with them, and then come back next year and tell me if it made a difference or not. And truly, if you see most projects, they will have either two, at best three. Very rarely will you see that all the four stakeholder groups have been very thoughtfully brought together so that they fit into the design and not as an ad hoc requirement, right? Just like the session today. And so that is the power when you bring in diversity into your stakeholder engagement, and therefore the contribution also becomes absolutely more holistic and integrated. And to understand this better, to set the context, to begin and let us get started, I am going to request Mr. Lokendra Thakkar to please say a few words to set the context and get us started. We'll be putting everybody's profiles in and LinkedIn profiles in the chat box so that we spend as much time as possible on the discussion rather than, on profiles, because we can always go back and learn more about them later. Mr. Thakkar, over to you.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, as you said, wherever you are in this part of the world. I'm very honored and grateful for your organizations to have invited me for this very important and very interesting panel. I'm really honored. I come from the government perspective, so my views would be by and large government. But as I said, government, always say that government is the biggest sort of enabler and also the sort of biggest customer. Whatever is produced in the country, I mean, government is the biggest buyer. So it's a very major, big stakeholder in all the spheres of life. So government is important. Whatever you want to do, be it social work or in any sphere of your social work, developmental work or environmental work, you have to have the sort of partnership with government. So government has a very important role. As I said, it's we government. I see government as an enabler, as somebody who convenes, somebody who regulates, somebody who facilitates, or maybe provides scale. Most of the projects and ideas that are being sort of tried out as pilots, if you want to really give a upscale those pilots, you have to have the support of government. So I think our challenge of India's challenge is very daunting, and in those contexts, I think the collaboration of all the four stakeholders that you pointed out, like government, industry, and civil society and academia, assumes a lot of importance. Since I work in environment, so I see it from environment, from climate change, biodiversity, wetlands. These are some of the areas that I have learned over the years that you cannot work in isolation. No stakeholder can work in isolation. Time has come that we have to collaborate. I mean, this is the only solution. And as you said, even if one is missing, your objective is not achieved. You are losing your objective. So the true future lies, I think, in collaboration. And this is where I also indicated my choice to be in this panel, because that is where I can see. I also want to say that we have a very strong institutions, but if you look at why are we not able to sort of collaborate, there is some gaps. So there is weak linkages. I think the linkages are weak. Institutions are very strong. You have a very strong policy framework, be it in climate change or wetlands or wherever. There is a very strong policy regulatory framework. You have a very vibrant private sectors. We have a very rich civil society and very world class academic institutions. So in all their sphere, everybody is excelling. But when it comes to working together, joining hands, that is where I think there is a challenge and there is a gap. And I think the panel discussions like this would help us to understand better how can we bridge that gap, so that we work together, we provide synergy to each other, and we achieve our objective of social, environmental, and economic development. I'll stop here for the moment.
And so true, right? I mean, institutions are strong, but linkages are weak. So, which actually means that we're working in fragments, in silos, right? And there's so much of fragmentation in our efforts, which also, of course, leads to duplication, not to mention waste of resources. So, thank you very much for setting that context. I will bring in Dr. Naman Gupta to kind of like maybe take us through how the United Nations is trying to bring people together so that we can actually work in multi-stakeholder settings. Dr. Naman, over to you.
Thank you, Karan. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. I know a lot of experienced faces are there on the screen, but just from the experience that I have gathered in the world of, say, I can say in the climate change specifically, because my area of work has been on climate for a longer time. So because I'm representing the organization, the multilateral organization of the United Nations, UNDP. So key thing that we see for any program design, because there are challenges, as Thakur sir has very clearly mentioned about the broader challenges which exist, broader gaps that exist, and also some of the enablers he has highlighted are there in the sector. But what is where the role of organizations like UNDP becomes important is really because we sort of act as we provide a neutral platform, so to say, because there is somewhere there is a lack of trust between various stakeholders in the domain. So maybe the community sometimes may not trust the other stakeholders. Maybe it might be even sometimes policymakers. Sometimes it can be private sector. But and these there is some sort of a trust gap in the ecosystem. So platforms that for which the UNDP sort of supports and we work towards is the neutral platforms, and we are in the position to provide better neutral convening platforms where all these stakeholders are brought together, And they similar platform, I won't say like this kind of innovative platform that you are hosting at the moment, but yes, similar platform we also invest, we also sort of conceptualize, and we also support. And any of the program design that happens at UNDP, we try to take all these four pillars of the ecosystem together. So whatever programs we design, our because our broader mandate is to support operationalization of SDGs. And SDGs, of course, cannot be achieved until we have facilitate the last mile connectivity or last mile reach also, like to the community. So we work throughout the spectrum. We work with the government because any of the programs that we design have to have a partnership and a stronger buy-in from the government side. We work for the community, so we look at the last mile as well. And how do we do it? We do work partner with a lot of stakeholders, including even private sector. Also, we work quite closely with. We work with academia, institutions, experts. So we do not have really limit on that. And of course, this on the ground, if you want, if you ask me, then any of the ground projects, field level implementation, that does not happen without involvement of civil societies. They bring that contextual understanding and they fill the bridge between the community and the policymakers. So we see each of these stakeholders as very strong connector to this entire bridge, and we sort of act as the in the role of really facilitator, so to say. So this is the structure that we strive to work towards, and more I can add if you would like to.
Of course. And I think that's the thing, right? We all have a role to play. And, not everybody can be an implementer, but neither can everybody be a connector. And so there are multiple roles that need to be played in an ecosystem. And based on that, you have to work based on your strengths and, look and then leverage those strengths and complement each other's strengths. So thank you. Yes, makes so much sense, right? So Darshan, I'm going to come to you. Because Naman didn't talk about civil society, NGOs on the ground, being such a large foundation, in fact, the largest probably, how do you see this playing out? Because you also do work on the ground yourself. That's the big difference with Reliance Foundation, right? So you have both sides of it that you can see, working with partners and yourself, and then working with government. So over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And basically, there are two contexts, like you mentioned about Reliance Foundation. So even on ground, basically the way to work has been in collaboration with other local grassroots agencies, which bring their feet on ground and have their credibility. And then looking to strengthening the system, making sure none of our projects work outside of the government ambit. So at village, gram panchayat level, block level, district level, state, and then central, at every level in different manifestation. And then, that mostly Reliance, the primary context that comes to mind is scale. And we look at scale as something achievable when you can carry others with you. So scale is not something just a number. There's a way of doing. There's a large collaborations around big ideas. Thinking big, scoping it big, and then implementing it big together at the same time everywhere. And so that's the larger context. And I think to a great extent, we have developed the wherewithal of what does it take. Having said that, let me go beyond that and also say personally, I aspire and obsess for a holistic approach to development. And I believe the marginalized communities or households, their challenges don't unfortunately exist in rows, columns, and cells of Excel sheet in the manner in which we slot our intervention. Whatever can go wrong goes wrong for the same household at the same time. So let me put the contra indication. Imagine a household, extreme marginal rural household. For health, it has to, if it has that household is reached by X foundation. For livelihood, Y NGO. For children's early childhood education, Z, middle school, this thing, girls issues, someone, fourth. So a household will spend all its time attending meetings of one or the other organization. I mean, just look at the entire absurdity and the load of it that is carried out. So I would put it the other way around. I think the change I would suggest the time has come is to imagine things holistically, respect the community as the first partner or as the lead partner. They should be determining their own priorities, agendas around which then we all have to figure out what do we partner with. If we have preconceived notions about what we are going to do and what partnership, and then fit in people and communities around that agenda, I think I'm sorry that we probably lost the script somewhere there. And I think often that tends to happen. And the most difficulty, let me also take another space. So I'm very, when something becomes a buzzword like partnerships is in or whatever, it takes much more than just talking about some broad frameworks. It's about individuals, people, personality, attitudes, egos, willingness to stretch and willingness to adapt, shift, change. So after all the big talk, sometimes it comes to nothing simply because there are mismatches around this. So we all probably need to be far humbler and modest and far more willing to stretch ourselves or be flexible or adapt and work around that. So I think partnerships, in some ways, I would say is not too late. Collaboration and partnership, it's also one of the most difficult mountains to climb.
Absolutely.
And
It's a great
whatever
thing
can
to.
go wrong goes wrong. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think while it's a wonderful thing and we know it is a required thing, it's not exactly easy to do it. And like you rightly said, it's a mountain to climb. So I think that's one thing why the whole PICO model that we are adopting is really about that. That is beyond your legal identities. Who are you and what are you willing to do? Because whoever you may be, if you're not going to do what is expected of you, then what's the point? Right? Or rather, there is always an expectation linked with different identities. So like government should do this, industry should do this, NGOs ka kaam hai ye. So that kind of a thought is there, or academia should do it. So that moving beyond that to say what is it that you're willing to do beyond that legal identity, I think is really the first step, and then we can look at what is the identity. So I think I'm going to go to an expert who has seen many such mountains yeah, in different shapes and form, and has kind of overcome them as well. So Dr. Sudhir Goel, I think with the kind of wealth of experience that you have, it'll be so wonderful to understand what do you think are those challenges that should really be kind of marked at the beginning itself and put on the wall and pinned, so that we say, look, first let's take care of this, everything else will happen. So what in your wealth of experience can you help and share something with us? Oh.
Yeah, thanks very much, Karan. Now, too many players, too little coordination, and too weak impact. Now, this is something which we keep on observing in government, and to a certain extent in private sector, apart from what they are doing in their own vertical. No private sector will survive unless they are doing very good in that vertical. So what is there in every sector of economy and in development? You have number of dots. And as you said, everyone is working to make that dot very strong. You can look at it in another way. There are number of verticals. So these two scenarios I would like to put up before you. Dots are there, but the connections are not there. And without that connection, no shape is coming out of it. So whether in the field of education, you find that more than 100 programs, private sector and public sector work together. But when ESSER results come, the annual survey of education report, you find that the 5th standard student is not able to read the 2nd standard book. This is every year. Same thing is in terms of when you have the health survey. And so more than 100 programs in the health sector, but the final outcome is not what we would like it to be. And same thing is in case of livelihood. And I'm more connected with in the field of agriculture, 50 years of government and private sector, 30 years in agriculture alone. I could see that very large number of stakeholders, very large number of players, and very little impact in terms of income. 10,000 rupees per month is the income of a farmer, is the last survey of NABARD. Now, this is something which is extremely worrisome. So your question is, what is that challenge which we should address to? Every dot is a leader. And when you want to bring all the leaders together, then all others should recognize that particular coordinator as a leader. Now we will have to go away from the mindset of a leader to an ecosystem, is a system of partnership. And I've tried to do it in the field of agriculture when we want to do it for public-private partnership. So public sector, private sector, farmers together, brought together on a platform, and then that should be possible. So that seems to be the biggest challenge. The second is, what is being measured is what you are doing in the dot, not all the dots put together what they are doing. And if you say, okay, how many trainings you have organized, finish. That is your survey, your monitoring is over. Or how many, say how much income you have earned, oh, finish. Now we will have to change this kind of a dialogue or conversation in terms of the final numbers, in terms of output. So when you see in the field of agriculture, you say how many quintals of seeds, how many tons of fertilizer, and finally nobody is asking what is the current income of the farmers, in what terms it has increased. You may talk in terms of food security, you may talk in terms of many other points, but when it comes to the final outcome as far as farmers are concerned, or final outcome as far as the nutritional at a reasonable price, the food is concerned for the consumers, the biggest two stakeholders in the entire value chain, we are not able to do it. So second question is, how do we resolve it? We can resolve it when we develop systems, whether they are digital, whether they are physical or physical, where such kind of coordination is built in. And this possibility is there. In case of government, there are people who have made it happen in terms of infrastructure and many other such projects. You can see that there is a huge coordination amongst public and private sector. So I would say that system development can be done. All the players can survive together. All dots can be there. But then there has to be a system which connects them together. All verticals also have horizontals. So when you have all the verticals put together, there has to be somebody, and there is the concept of value chain, whether it is social value or it is an economic value. That value chain can be established. Over to you.
No, thank you. I think the topics that you brought up are so close to my heart, actually, personally. One is, talking about connecting the dots. I think that's something I always tell. Before you can connect the dots, you have to do two things. One is, not all dots are the same size, which means if they're not, then you need to build the capacity to make them bigger if they're too tiny. And the second part is even worse. They're not visible. How can you connect dots which are not visible? Which means, do you know that everything is there in the ecosystem? Are you aware of everything that is there in the ecosystem? So that is one part. And second is about the impact. I think we use the word impact so loosely in the sector. The difference between outcomes and impact are definitely not something that people even think about half the time when we are reporting numbers or what it is that we really want to measure, right? So I think these are, and of course, intended and unintended impact, positive and negative impact. We don't talk about any of these, and they're all very important when you want to bring everybody on the same page. So how do you bring everybody to agree as to what is really critical if you're going to measure impact and aim for that kind of impact? So thank you so much. I think that was very, very critical insights into what we need to pin to the wall, as I asked you earlier, to start thinking from day one when you're designing and not, ad hoc while you're on the road. So I have with me also Dr. Parag and Subhash Panikkar, and I think we will move to the next part, which is really about capabilities. So let's hear some success stories now. Yeah, let's hear some good news, because, if you're only going to talk challenges, then we feel like, oh, it's no use, it's not going to happen, it's too insurmountable, as Sudarshan said, it's a mountain out there, right? So how do we scale that mountain? What are those examples where we've been able to do that? So yeah, Dr. Parag, Subhash, either of you can go first, not a problem. Yeah.
Okay, so while I was listening to the speakers that just spoke before me, and like a good professor, I had actually been taking notes and keeping. And one of the problems with a professor is he speaks too much. So I just wanted to be very, very crisp. There are a couple of points, uh, and which is where we come in as a probably as an academic institution. The first problem is that of employability, right? And we all know, we all are fighting it day in and day out. Um we are talking about, unfortunately or fortunately, we are saying that our system is churning out people who are employable.
Yeah.
That means we still have not got out of the mindset which the English taught us. Because when our friend Macaulay got the Macaulay system, uh, it is rumored that the system was basically to produce clerks, right? And for whatever reason, we have been very, very happy following that system. And uh, whether that system was useful, not useful, is not the question. The question is, what do we need today? Today, are we in a position to provide that many jobs to the engineers that are passing out, to the MBAs that are passing out? Uh, Probably the answer is no. And then there are also reports which say that, fine, you are churning out engineers, you are churning out MBAs, but are they employable? There's this wonderful term that everybody is talking about. Are they employable? Uh, Now I want to present the other side of the story. The other side of the story is that, fine, this is a challenge, this is a problem which probably not only us but every country is facing today, right? Fortunately, we have a solution for that. Our government today is talking about, focus on entrepreneurship. There are so many schemes that have floated, right, which includes Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, etc., etc. So they're actually trying to create an entire ecosystem so that people could become a part of that ecosystem. And there is an alternative to being employable. You can actually start your own entrepreneurial venture, and instead of becoming a job seeker, one could actually become a job provider. Now, I feel PPP, as a concept or as a model, uh, really would do wonders in this context. And I'll give you an example. And I'm sharing this example because we are, as a university at this point of time, we are involved in a PPP with the government of Maharashtra, which they have recently floated. And this PPP is basically about, they have these ITIs, right? The training technical institutions across Maharashtra, maybe 5,000 of them or more than that. And they came out with this thought that, why don't we involve the academia and the private sector to adapt and adapt the curriculum and adopt the ITIs and modernize them, right? Uh, we were one of the first universities to have put our hand up and said that, okay, we will adopt an ITI. So we have adopted one ITI, which is a women's ITI at Dadar. And it's been almost 6 months that we have now been working very closely with them. Our objective is how do we make these girls self-reliant? It is not about employability. It is not about giving them a technician role in one of the companies, right? It is about how do they start something on their own. And so we have been actually developing modules and executing those modules for them with the objective of giving them something more than what they learn at ITI. Now, why PPP and how does it work? I think it's an entire ecosystem, as you rightly mentioned. We are creating an entire ecosystem of which all of these are very important stakeholders. And when we create an ecosystem, one of the biggest advantages of an ecosystem, and I always tell this to my student, that we should always try to become bigger than the problem. Because when we become bigger than the problem appears very small, and then we get the confidence that we can solve it. So when we talk about PPP, we are basically trying to create a big environment to solve a small problem.
It's very nice, very nice. Absolutely.
And that is where with us, we have an NGO on board. And of course, we have got the entire ecosystem that we have at the university to help skill. So that is one part of the story. The second part, and I'll just keep it very short, just next maybe half a minute or so.
Sure.
So that will basically take care of the employability challenge. The second challenge is of the education itself. Because government is talking about the GER, the gross enrollment ratio, which is hovering somewhere around 23 to 25 in today's context. And they have a very ambitious plan of raising it to around 50. And for that, they have also, they're trying to create an enabling environment. One of the most obvious ways of doing that is, you start offering online programs and start recognizing these online programs. And I'm very glad that the agencies like UGC and AICTE have now started, accepting these online programs, giving approvals to these online programs, and to a great extent that will solve the GER issue. And I'm sure that the vision that we have 2047, by that time we would have easily crossed GER of 50, and the entire employability metrics would have changed, because with so much focus on the startups, and I think India is one of the topmost countries that has most of the startups, and even the rate at which the startups are kind of coming up, not to say that we have the largest number of unicorns. So I'll just rest here at this point of time and probably pitch in whenever
Yes,
an
yes,
opportunity
absolutely.
comes.
Yes, we still have
Thank you.
much more time to cover a lot more ground. But thank you so much, Dr. Parag. Yeah, Subhash, over to you. Please give us some good news.
Thank you so much. I am honored to listen to all the luminaries here who are there, and I've just picked up one nugget from each and every person, and then I will put forth what I have to share. So I think, Lokendra ji, you said institutions are strong, and linkages are weak. So that's something I'll try a thread to that. Mrs. Naman spoke about last mile connectivity, which is the critical part of it. And Mr. Sudarshan made a very, very important observation about, thinking big, scoping big, and implementing big, right? And then Sudhir sir mentioned about a very, very important insight. Without connecting the dots, no picture or shape emerges, right? And then Dr. Parag, kind of brought about another insight that are we creating a very big environment to solve a very small problem, right? So putting all these things together, I would like to share from two perspectives. One is that the gaps that we see in collaboration, the collaboration is obviously a no-brainer today. And also it's a no-brainer that nothing big of scale or what is sustainable can happen without the government support, whether it is the central government or the state government or even the local body. So, but one of the challenges which we can see and which I have witnessed is, one of them is something called policy instability, followed by what sometimes is seen now, judicial intervention. So there's a policy, there's a challenge, there's a PIL, there's a this thing, and suddenly more questions are asked, and that policy then gets put in cold storage for some time till everybody says we are waiting for the Supreme Court judgment or we're waiting for the High Court judgment. So then the policy remains in cold storage. The second thing is, which I witnessed as a gap, was the contractual, what is called rigidity, for PPP, public-private participation. Once a contract is made, there is very little flexibility for a renegotiation in the light of what has changed on the ground, right? And that takes away a lot of time. I think an example of that was it took place in Kerala, where the highway width was supposed to be of a particular stretch, and then specifically for Kerala alone, that was reduced by 15 meters, right? So the flexibility for regularization was not there at the beginning. Only after various agitations and interventions took place, that renegotiation happened. The other thing is about, we said about government, industry, and then the academia. The academia focuses upon theoretical research, and the industry, requires pragmatic, kind of market-ready solutions, right? So as Dr. Amin mentioned, employability, but I would like to take a little bit further, that we are having people who are qualified to be hired, obviously, yes, but are they ready to perform or essentially deliver outcomes? The other thing which I've also observed is that anything big, and that is what Dr. Naman said, last mile connectivity. So last mile connectivity, if that's not covered up, and that does not happen as a gap, is because of the marginalization of local voices. Civil society organizations actually, connect that last mile for things to happen on the ground. So this marginalization of local voices is what is also one more gap. And obviously, yes, affordability versus profit, right? So the civil society has a demand for universal affordability, but then critical sectors, which can be served by the private sector, has a need for financial viability. So how do you match the financial viability versus the society's demand for affordability? And then something which is probably, I'm not sure whether it is politically correct to say that, but there's so much of regulatory pressure on the NGOs, which used to act as a conscience and a check and a balance for a partner in any kind of public service delivery. So that's a little bit of a shrinking space for that. Now, I would like to give two specific examples of GICA, where it worked, right? And that's something which I have also been involved in, so I can very confidently say that. These are two examples. I am from Bangalore. I don't know whether anybody else on this panel is from Bangalore. So I'll give you two examples which are there in Bangalore. One is about 3 years to 5 years old, and the other is just 3 to 5 months old, right? Okay. The first one, as everybody knows, waste management and disposal, of waste is a pressing need for big cities, whether it is any large city is a big problem. And particularly for a developing city like Bangalore, which is planning to develop even 10 times more than what it is, waste management and disposal has been a pressing regular issue. Now, the government comes in. So we have the Bangalore Solid Waste Management Limited entity, which has been formed. Then you have the industry, which is the waste disposal vendors, right? Then you have the civil society, which is the Bangalore Apartment Federation, the 1,300 members, various local groups, etc. And then you have the academia. What the academia comprises of the Bangalore, Science and Technology Cluster, which is actually coordinated by the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Now, what did all these people coming together do and created something very substantive and of meaning to this thing was that now there is the Bangalore has been divided into the Greater Bangalore Authority, North, South, East, West, Central, etc. And in each of these areas, there is a waste management vendor who has been appointed. There has been a lot of, awareness sessions. There have been a lot of discussions between the Bangalore Apartment Federation and the BDSWML. So a lot of dialogues, And then in parallel, BEST, which is the Bangalore Science and Technology Cluster coordinated by Institute of Science, has been conducting awareness sessions across the city on these topics, right? So vendors, which is the industry, is involved, the government is involved, the civil society is involved, and academia is also involved. Coming together, all of them have arrived at what we call as the flexibility of operating, and that flexibility and iterations in a live environment. So it started in February and it went through iterations in March, April, May. And now finally in the month of June, it's kind of settled down into what is acceptable. So the last mile connectivity is there because various, the users have accepted it. The vendors and the government have found a way to make it viable for the vendor. And the bottom line is waste management. There is something which looks bright for waste management and waste disposal. So that's an example of GICA in real operation, and of very, very recent, last 3 to 5 months it has happened. I've been an active participant in that activity, so I can speak very, very authoritatively on that. The second thing, which is something which is about 3 to 5 years old, is also a pressing need for many towns and cities in the country, and Bangalore is an example of that. Once upon a time, Bangalore had 800 lakes, right? So today we have less than 100. So the challenge is, how do you maintain those 100? How do you rejuvenate that? And how do you reclaim it? Now, how did that happen? Again, you have the government, the BBMP, and most importantly, one of the very prominent MLAs, Mr. Krishna Bairegowda, who's also the revenue minister, involvement in that. Okay. The second, the industry, the vendors and the actors who are actually engaged in the cleanup, the STP maintenance, and the entire dredging operations, etc., etc. The third, the civil society, the voluntary groups in various localities which took ownership of the lakes which were there in their localities. I would say spearheaded by somebody who's well known here, Jakur, the Jalaposhan, Dr. Annapurna Kamath, who also won, an award from the National Water Mission. And then we have the Biomi Vishwanath, Zen Rain Man. Academia was coming through the water research projects, in part done by the Azim Premji University. So that's the academia, conducting workshops for various groups to get an understanding of what is it. One of the schools called Canadian International School, allowing its students to do projects on water, and lake rejuvenation. So I've seen what is the result of this? Today, there are roughly around 30 lakes which have got rejuvenated, which are clean, which are maintained by the government. The civil society organizations have withdrawn from that because there is no longer any need for people to come and do it, because it's already been taken care of by the BBMP and the government, and it is being maintained well. What is happening now to keep these things alive? Now it is branched off into runs and marathons. It's called lake to lake. So there's a lake run which is from one lake to another for the purpose of generating funds. There are social events which are held there. So you can see, as we said, connecting all these dots, the government, the industry, the civil society, and academia, right? And then taking up to what Dr. Amin said, did we have to create a big environment to solve a small problem? No. An environment was created, not a big environment, but to create a problem, not necessarily a small problem.
Very true.
So this is what happened. Two real life examples I'm giving you of GICA, and 3 suggestions I have with respect to plugging the gaps, right? So one of them is adopting. We'll come to that later.
Second, Subhash, we'll come to that we are now going to move to the collaboration phase, which is the last and final, which is exactly what you're going to be talking. So I'll come to that, but I just want to, because you gave a beautiful segue, which, Mr. Lokendra is very, very deeply involved, both in the waste management as well as in water and rejuvenation of water bodies, wetlands. So I think, it'd be wonderful to also hear back again from him. Okay, what are the opportunities that are there? I think now let's move to the collaboration piece and what are the opportunities that exist? How can we bring in more people? And what you pointed out, Subhash, I think one of the very important thing is civil society includes citizens. Right? We sometimes tend to forget that. We tend to look at civil society as only NGOs. And yes, NGOs are very important. They play a great role. They are really part of the last mile. They are very embedded in communities. That's absolutely true. I mean, we ourselves are a hybrid organization and we have another NGO. So completely understand that. But citizens themselves, individuals themselves play a huge role to really make ecosystems work, because they are both the ones who get affected They're the affected people also, but they're also the ones who can create solutions, right? They make the big environment that Dr. Parag kind of alluded to. And so I think that would be excellent to kind of explore. And I would give this as a tip for everybody to think about, so that you can come in when you come in next, is what is it that you are looking to do to partner with which kind of stakeholder group where you feel that will really strengthen what you are doing, because those are collaboration opportunities. And so those whoever's hearing us today, and when this goes out as well, of course it's live right now for our people, but also out later on when we put it up on YouTube, what is it that we can attract to ourselves and to our projects that would encourage people to reach out and maybe partner? So I don't know, Mr. Lokendra, if you'd like to talk, as I said, both from the waste management as well, and also any other project, rejuvenation of water bodies that you are working on. If you'd like to share, that would be really amazing to have that, because that would be true collaboration. Sir, you are on mute.
Thank you, Karan. I was listening to all the panelists, and lastly, I heard Mr. Panikkar talking about lakes and wetlands, and then how the Bangalore is coming back to surviving all those. Out of 800 wetlands now, I think I heard about hundreds are existing, and about 30 odd have been rejuvenated. It's a great story because I come also from a city of lakes, Bhopal, and one of the biggest lake in the country. I mean, is the Ramsar side, the upper and lower lakes of Bhopal. And we are seeing this kind of collaboration. I mean, I can't say with the same authority what Bangalore has achieved. I heard and I keep hearing from Vishwanath also about the stories of Bangalore. But I would say that Bhopal's lake also have the similar kinds of not a formalized but informalized partnership with all the stakeholders. I'm not too sure about the industry per se, because industry is not directly involved in Bhopal, but like civil society and academia and governments, we are working together very closely. So one of the dot is missing in our collaboration, but yet we are finding some ways to connect with them. I can cite one example recently that, Bhopal is if you know this lake is about 1200 years old, one of the biggest man-made lake in Asia. And this lake is under severe anthropogenic and climatic factors, are operating and under severe threat because of lots of, pressures that you can think of: urbanization, people encroaching lands from all over, water, is decreasing, biodiversity is at the stake, all kinds of issues that we can think of in an urban wetland. We are suffering from those things. Yet the wetland is the lifeline of the city of Bhopal. It still provides drinking water to about 500,000 people in the city. So we are trying to see how we can sort of conserve this wetland. And I see every day in a newspaper, if you open any mainstream newspaper of the city, and you will find one big story about wetland. The civil society is so strong about wetland, so possessive, that anything goes wrong with the wetland is getting reported, or somewhere somebody is writing complaints or grievances, raising their voice at any platform. I can, many times in government, we think that these, civil society people and activists are, in a sense, they are our critics, and they don't, we don't go hand in hand. But personally, leading this wetland work in the state of Madhya Pradesh, I'm the state officer for that. I always see that these kinds of newspaper reports, media and civil society, and academia also, because recently, I tell you, in Bhopal, two prime institutions of the country, the ISER, the Indian Institute of Science and Education Research, and IIT Indore, and School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal, they came out with some kind of studies which were not sort of, in a sense, going down well with the government, because their research suggested that this wetland is going to not last long because of the various factors that they envisaged through their modeling exercise. But I think that these informations and these kinds of pressures give us an agenda to government. We pull up our socks, we tighten our belts, and we start working. And I always welcome them, that please come and talk to us. We are not working against each other. Rather, we are working together. And in that context, the the Ramsar site of Bhopal needs what we call the integrated management plan. And the first time, maybe in the country, this example we are setting, that the wetland authority, the municipal corporation, the academics, the civil society, we are all working together to develop what we call the integrated management plan for wetlands of Bhopal. So I'm saying that many times, academics have a complaint that the policies, people are not using our knowledge. And we always say that the academics are not doing the research, the kind of, inputs that we want. So we are always, in a sense, seem to be in loggerheads, but we are not. And in that kind of myth we have tried to demystify over here in Bhopal. We are working together. I welcome their participation, their comments, be it in any platform, newspaper, social media, personally, or in official procedures. So I mean, this is my lesson. I'm just giving one example of wetland, but otherwise also the kind of trust deficit that we feel between all these stakeholders. As I said before, we have a strong institutions, linkages are weak. One of the reasons for this weak link to me is that there is a trust deficit. We have to build that trust. We have to see that we are complementing each other. And actually, this is a time of association. You have to connect the dots. You find links. You see how can we sort of reach out to each other. And that is where we can solve this daunting problem. Otherwise, as far as environment development is concerned, working in isolation, gone are the days. We cannot work in isolation. We need support of all industry, media, civil society, academics. Everybody is needed. All are welcome. Thank you.
Great. No, thank you for making that offer. And I think, like you said, if there is a dot that's missing, we need to definitely bring it in. If there are dots that are weak, where you seem to be more colliding dots rather than complementary dots, then we need to find ways to, resolve those and be on the same page, because that is going to happen. It is, because everybody has their own priorities, have their own ways to look at things, perspectives, and that's likely to happen. But the fact is not about whether you have different viewpoints. The fact is whether you can work together, put that aside and say, okay, let's find out for the greater good rather than only think about ourselves. And I think that's the whole co-ownership that we are talking about. How do you co-own the change? How do you make people co-owners of your ecosystem? So
I just want to add, Karan, here that most of the thing what happens is in government that we think that who owns this project, who is the ownership. You're also talking of co-owning. I think we should think of who is going to own the outcomes.
Yes.
So that paradigm shift in our thinking is needed. Right now, we are so possessive about projects. I'm owning the project, but I'm not owning the outcomes. Somebody who owns the outcomes, that is involved, that I think will give a long-term sustainability of our ideas and projects.
So that's why we use the word co-own, because we all own a part of it. None of us can own the whole thing. There is no way that anyone can say, I am responsible for the entire thing, or that it belongs to me, or that, I will ensure it gets done. There cannot be that and it cannot be just my ownership. It has to be a co-ownership. And when you recognize that others co-own it with you, respect starts coming in, accountability starts coming in, trust starts getting built. But when you have that, there's a single ownership kind of a perspective, then it's impossible, because you'll say, ye to mera hai, and that's the kind of way that we tend to think. So I'm going to move to Sudarshan and ask, so Sudarshan, are there any opportunities for collaboration that perhaps you are looking at, or where any dots that are missing that you might want to kind of flag and make an offer over here? Because we are all looking for opportunities for collaboration. I'm pretty sure of that. Chal.
I want to first pick up the previous thread, and I think language plays a very important role, because you mentioned ownership. I think what we should be talking about is accountability and not ownership. Ownership brings boundaries, it brings possession. I mean, the whole spirit is different. If anybody should own,
Sudarshan, that's why we've made it co-ownership. Because
I think not even that. I think if anybody, I think it's time to bring some modesty. I think the primary ownership, if anybody, should be those whose reality actually counts, the people with whom we are working. They live and own that context more than any one of us. All of us come and go. So I think nothing actually brings the right to kind of own something. And instead, let us all have modest contributions in the context, and let's build the narratives from there. And I think the time is, what is not spoken is quite often collaborations, partnerships, and all get reduced to financial relationships. While they are not said, it's out of fashion to talk about that, but underlying context. I want to say that each one of us, and so many people out there, each one has some value to add, some speciality, some different role, context, and other things. My offer on behalf of Reliance Foundation, one of our primary objectives going forward is we're working on a idea of Atmanirbhar Gaon, self-reliant villages, Gram Panchayats across India. There are actually at the last count some 300,000 Gram Panchayats or so much. So there is a whole lifetime of work left there. At modest, we can work with some few thousand, 100,000, something like that. Even in that, not holistically. So the communities require attention from all directions. So definitely, I would welcome partnerships where people can offer skills, competencies, knowledge, resource, willingness to do something. And I think there is enough space for that. And whatever knowledge, skills, competencies, and ground level capabilities we have, livelihoods work, farm, de-risking rain-fed farming work, organizing institutions, marketing, some of those things we've done for last 15 years, and probably I'll put for a second modesty apart, some of the best in the country. So that would be available to anybody else, and happily so. And then, equally, I see, people also from academic institutions here on the call, happy to have a co-sharing platforms, bringing the practitioners, Dr. Amin, to your this thing, taking your people to ground and, exposure. There are a lot of mutual things we can all do together, you know, given our willingness to scope all this around each other. So I think, and whatever I say it from my deepest of my heart. Collaborations, partnerships actually don't require any invitation. And
Yeah.
it might come across as a very misogynist, bad example, but let me try and articulate. North Indian weddings, the North Indian weddings, girl's house is a house of chaos normally. Every hand which comes to help is always welcome to join and strengthen. And that's the kind of thing that we are talking about here, the spirit. आ जाओ मतलब कोलैबोरेशन मतलब you don't need MOUs, you don't need complicated thing. आओ और आप भी लग जाओ, Or these gurdwaras have those people coming for car seva. So that's what we are talking. I think it's time we shift gears to getting things on the ground, doing things. All of us go and offer ourselves as collaborators, willing partners to the people whose lives are on the margin. And I would certainly always be happy to be counted as one among them. So, thank
I
you.
think that was a beautiful analogy because that's so true. I think the very first thing with partnerships is that absolute openness, right? In fact, we say it, and it's there on the website when we talk of the RISE values. Say it is about radical openness. You have to be open to everything, and secondly, you can't be thinking what's in it for me first. Right? You have to be thinking is, chalo, what do you need? Let me do something for you. So be a giver first, and then you'll automatically become a taker because you get the satisfaction of giving. So yeah, thank you for that, example, Sudarshan, and thank you for the offer. I think it's wonderful if we can start with collaboration right here at the table itself. I think that will be a great step and a model to kind of emulate and take forward. Yeah. Dr. Goel, would you like to add to what are the opportunities out there? Because Dr. Parag has already got his offer of partnership, but any thoughts on what are the opportunities out there for collaboration?
Yeah, I would say that to my mind, next 5 to 10 years, we should develop localized value chains in the field of agriculture.
Right.
And that is something which I have been aiming at and trying even after leaving the government. And that is where I think is a great opportunity to connect farmers to the markets, connecting farmers to the consumers, sustainable value chains, and all the rise which we are talking about in this forum. There is a role to be played by government, and that is where probably I can always help how to get connected with the huge potential which lies in various government programs. That is one side. The other side is in what way different players in the private sector can be brought together. And there is a possibility, and there exists a platform, public-private partnership for agri-value chain developments. I would request Sudarshan sir to have a look at it. This platform already exists, and one can have localized, regional, state-wise, even nation-wise, big agricultural platforms. The biggest platform today is Amul, 38 lakh farmers, 1 lakh crore turnover. And that is the kind of value chain which are possible. But that has not happened in terms of cereals, pulses, oilseed, cotton, fruits, vegetables. Lot of work remains to be done.
Right.
Farmers are one of the most distressed community. 25 crores of them in terms of growers and laborers are struggling. Their level of income is low. And as a society, we have a responsibility to see to it that they are inclusive, your I of RISE. And S in terms of sustainability, soil have deteriorated, water tables are going down. We know that problem is there. So let us act responsibly. And also in terms of create that kind of entrepreneurship, which is possible through digital platforms. Naman can help from UNDP. We can create digital platforms for value chains. And that digital platform, if it is available, anyone can just log in and start working on a localized value chain. That I would say I'm all for it. Anyone who would like to have a localized value chain, local or regional or state, I'm all for it. And my 24/7 is available to this platform.
What an offer, I can tell you that. 24/7, how much more selfless than that can you do? No, Sudarshan, thank you so much. Yeah, he's left, he needed to go. But Sudhir, so, I will be hosting yet another 2 sessions after that today. And in fact, one every day, which we are calling the architecture of congruence. How do you really bring partnerships together? And what is the methodology that we are talking about, of course, which is based on the whole PICO model and a lot more of the Koru toolkit. So if anybody would like to join in and share your thoughts at that time or explore how we can do it, including the platform, because the PICO world is a tech platform based on that methodology. So, and that methodology has evolved over a period of 17 years. When I first started Idobro 17 years ago, that is what, because Idobro itself is a systems thinking model. And based on that, chipping away at it slowly, looking and understanding it deeper is what we finally have been able to come up with what we're doing today. And of course, during the pandemic, we worked with UNICEF very significantly for 5 years, and Naman was a part of that platform as well, where we started with some 50 partners when we got started, and we had a logo which had everybody's logo inside Maharashtra map. And today we have more than 240 members that is in every single district of Maharashtra. And finally, the government put in a PMU that could manage that entire thing. So, there has been lived experience based on which we've created this methodology. So I would be very grateful of anybody coming in to give us more inputs, to give us that guidance, give us that feedback so that we could make it more valuable and useful to more use cases across India, because that's the whole purpose of having the Pico World. So thank you for bringing that out. Yeah. Naman, would you like, sir has already given you an offer, so I'm going to jump to you.
So, thank you, Karan, and thank you, sir. Anyway, sir has spoken it publicly now as well, but otherwise, for last 10 years, I have been really connected with him and seeking his input and advice on various things, particularly on the climate resilient agriculture side. And sir, happy to share here because there is an immediate opportunity where we are also working with the Pradhan Mantri's Deen Dayal Krishi Yojana, the DDKY Yojana. And we will be working with the FPOs particularly in 4 states in Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Bihar, and Uttarakhand. And we will be picking up maybe 1 or 2 crops for specific localized value chain and market linkage support. In MP, it's going to be on the millets, most probably. And also there is a Federation of Millets, you might be aware. So that's the kind of a program that we have just designed. It's in the process of approval, I can say. And yes, and our that's the opportunity where we would really like to get your input and get our program enriched with your experience and your guidance. So that's an immediate opportunity. And on the convergence side, maybe there is something that I would like to really highlight here. Because any of the programs, when you talk about climate resilience or even any other sector also, it's so crowded. Somebody has already spoken that there are so many dots working for or so many players who are working with the same community. It becomes more a hassle for the community to deal with so many players. Although objective, ultimate outcome and or the objective of everybody's program is quite positive, quite ambitious. But what we do not realize that in that entire working style, no, we tend to forget the inconvenience that's caused to the end beneficiary. So we need to really have a convergence approach very, very strongly formulated, very, very strongly led by somebody who is really having authority as well. Because at the district level, for example, if we talk about district level, we know district collector is the king of this district, or anything that is implemented goes through his office broadly. At least he has the visibility of all the efforts which are going in the district. So we do have the convergence committees in some districts for a specific sector. For example, agriculture. I've seen in Odisha the convergence model is pretty good in some districts. Similar convergence committees are there in other districts also, but are they really functional? Because there is a gap. It becomes like more of a policy thing only, that okay, you need to have a convergence committee, but convergence committee has much more bigger role to play, and it should be the body who has the because it has the visibility of every effort going in the district, is in the best position, I would say, that can really direct various stakeholders. Otherwise, what happens that in some villages or at some pockets, there are lot many players, but there are huge gaps in the other pockets of the same district. Why it is happening? Because perhaps people are working as per their convenience, not as per the convenience or the demand that's coming from the community. So some sort of a restructuring or a convening or capacity building has to happen at the level where convergence should be seen as one of the stronger pillar when the partnerships or when the implementation has to happen by various stakeholders for the community. So yeah,
So, so true. Thanks so much, Naman. Absolutely, we need to bring convergence is the key, right? At the end of the day, that's when partnerships really start blooming. So, how do you do that? Convergence is the key part of it. So, Subhash, you had your 3 recommendations. Please, I think this would be a good time. We're almost coming to the end, so it'll be a good time for us to look at these recommendations, suggestions. What is it that we're going to? What should we be taking away with us? And then, of course, Dr. Parag, I'm going to come to you to kind of close it from there, right? So, Subhash, over to you, please.
Yeah. So I have just 3 simple suggestions. The first one is to adopt flexible models. As I said, even if policies are put in place, even if other, contracts are put in place, a clause to could be added to provide that flexibility with very, very clear documented way of doing it. That is one thing. So that it leaves the window for the various stakeholders to not get frustrated and quite often requiring only judicial intervention, right? The second one is to kind of institutionalize this consulting. There are various consultative groups which could be identified and created, not necessarily always waiting for a problem and then searching for a consultative group, which represents both industry and academia across various sectors and fields which are known as known pain points or are known as areas where a solution is required, right? And to define that with a 3-year local research priority. Obviously, at the national level, things are required to provide a much larger oversight and sometimes even funds also. But as we mentioned about the last mile connectivity and how something translates from thinking big to actually implementing big, a 3-year local research priority could be brought into place in that in the institutionalization of consulting. The third one is to enhance community engagement. Today, in multiple cities and towns across the country, there are enough number of citizen action groups, as they are called. So willing to volunteer time, effort, sometimes most often even willing to do things pro bono. So can that community engagement be enhanced so that you have a body which mediates between the state government's avowed priorities, which should be in line with the community, but quite often may be, diverted by political compulsions and the local community. So if there is this community engagement which keeps happening, these are the things which could plug these gaps between, thought and implementation in the GICA model. These are my 3 suggestions.
Thank you, Subhash. They're very, very useful. And as I said, as we're coming to the end, these are really food for thought. This is why I wanted to keep more towards the end, because we really need to think about who are we bringing into our partnerships? How do we bring in more people? And to get away from these perceptions, as Lokendra sir said also earlier, that there is a feeling of more conflict. There's a feeling more of activism. There's a feeling more of, we against them and, them and us, that kind of a thing. We need to get away from all of that. And what you're saying is exactly that, that these are some of the ways we could go about to build the ecosystem, get more people into it, right? Add more people, because nobody alone is going to be able to do it. So thank you for sharing those suggestions. And I think we really have to think of them much more deeply. So Dr. Parag, tell me, what do you think now? You are in charge of all our youngsters of this world. You are the one who's bringing the future leaders and the current citizens. So one of the things I always say, every academic institution says, we are building leaders of tomorrow. I'm like, really? And what about today? What are they going to do today, right? They are citizens today. If they're citizens today, they will be better leaders tomorrow, better decision makers tomorrow, better, managers tomorrow, whatever they choose to do. But they need to be good citizens today. So how is that happening in the academic world? And how does that then intersect, and converge with the rest of, like we said, the rest of what's happening in the world around us? So over to you, please.
So we are actually in a very enviable position at this point of time as an academician, because we get the opportunity to, I tell my kids that I go to college even now, which most of us otherwise don't have that privilege of being still a part of a college. Anyways, I think there are 2-3 things. One is the way we look at it here at Atlas University is, see, each one of us in whatever role that we should not forget that we ourselves are parents, right? And so the process always has to be inside out. What we want to inculcate in our kids, our own children, we should inculcate that in somebody else's kids also, and which is what we practice here. So you very rightly mentioned, the fact that they may be the leaders of tomorrow, but they are citizens today. And what are we doing about them being good citizens? Right? And this is exactly the practice that we follow, where we say that, look, when you are here, you are a part of our family, and we would treat you exactly the way we would treat our kids, right? So every time that we interact with parents, one of the questions that I ask a parent is what are you preparing your child to be? And invariably the answer is, I want him to be an MBA or an engineer or a CA or whatever. And I'm saying that is not what I'm asking. Because let's look at life for the next 45 years, next 50 years, because your child is going to have a career for next 40 years possibly, or next 45 years. What do you want him to be, or what do you want her to be? The basic thing is you want her or him to be a strong, holistically developed individual. You don't want your child to be developed or to be having a one-track development, right? And we are seeing the effects of one-track development, where people are just picking up guns and killing others just for the sake of it, just for the thrill of it, right? Thankfully, in India, we are talking about holistic education. And I think that is one thing that most of the academic institutions today are practicing. We are talking about holistic education. So we teach our child not only the domain, but we also teach our child a lot of other things which go to make that child a good human being, a good citizen. Of course, I am saying that we still need to put a lot of efforts, and it is everybody's responsibility, right? The academic world, of course, is the let's call it the prime owner, because the child comes to us. But we as parents also own the same ownership. We cannot just leave it on an academic institution saying that, boss, हमने तो आपको दे दिया, आप संभालिए. It is like, I am not able to handle my problem, so I am giving it to you, and you better handle my problem. It doesn't work that way. So that is one. Second thing is, here also, in this entire grooming, it is like a parent-teacher collaboration, right? And we bring in two more factors in that. So, for instance, we deliberately send our students to an NGO internship. And you will see nowadays, most of the academic institutions are doing that, because our objective was, we wanted to sensitize our students to the other side of the world. We wanted them to know what exactly happens on the streets. We wanted them to know what exactly happens to an underprivileged child and how do they live their life. And it's been my personal experience, because I have been a part of some of these initiatives, and I've seen that students, in a period of maybe a week or two, they actually get transformed. Of course, there's always a 80-20 ratio, right? Which is true in every class. So you will always have 20% of the students who are the flag bearers.
Yes,
absolutely. And within 80%, again, you have 80-20.
Yeah.
But that transformation is happening. And good news is that, all said and done, whatever generation that we name them today, alpha, beta, or gamma, or whatever generation that we are talking about, if they are given the right kind of a direction, and if they are sensitized at the right time with the right things, there is a transformation that is happening, and which is what we are witnessing on a day-to-day basis. And that's a good news. All these initiatives that I'm speaking about, you will probably be very happy to know that we run something called as a community fridge.
Nice.
Okay. And who is driving that? It's our students who is driving it. It is not the teachers who go. And in fact, this idea also came from a student.
Very
Saying
nice.
that, why don't we think about a community fridge? Because we're talking about creating an impact.
Correct.
And then there are so many ways in which you can create an impact. There can always be a blood donation camp, or there can be a beach cleanup activity, or there can be so on and so forth, which is happening.
Absolutely.
And it is these kids that are driving this. So I think all that is required of you and me as stakeholders is just give them the right kind of a direction.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, the biggest responsibility of every individual.
No, that's beautiful. And I think, these are such important nudges that are there. And that actually gives me a very easy way to ask Mr. Lokendra again about something that is very close to his heart as well. And something that we also have in common is two things, in fact, I would say. One is mission life, because it kind of leads from what Dr. Parag just mentioned. And second is the circular economy. I think, like you said, getting everything back into the ecosystem, every action we do gets back into the ecosystem, which is nothing else than circular economy. So, Mr. Lokendra, maybe this is the last piece that we can probably cover before we have to close. You don't even realize how quickly time passes, right? People say, oh, 1 hour and that's it. It's too much beyond 1 hour. But actually, we could easily go on for another half an hour, 45 minutes, I'm sure, very easily. But we'll have to stop, of course. So let me just ask Mr. Lokendra this, and then we'll probably come to a close. Yeah, over
As
to
a
you.
professor, we are used to talking for 1.5 hours till the bell rings.
Bell bajega yahan pe bhi. Yeah, sir, please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you for reminding and calling me again, Karan. I forgot to mention these two initiatives that we are working together. One is Mission Life, and the other is the circular economy. And when I look at circular economy, I think this is the real, example, live example of connecting the dots. We have the civil society people who are actually working on the ground on work on waste management. So we have industry perspective, we have the multilateral donor support from UNDP. We have people like you, Karan, on board, and you are the designing the training module for us. And we have the government perspective, the civil society, industry, multilateral donors, academicians. Everybody is working together. And I think that this is where the crux lies, that how can we actually pull the knowledge and resource from all the stakeholders and work together for a common cause. And this, I think, is something which needs to be sort of replicated in other sphere also. This is just one live example we are working to. And second is the Mission Life. Again, Mission Life, although it's a government program, but ultimately reaches out to the community. And last couple of years, we have worked, massively on working with community and civil society organizations to develop their capacities and understanding the behavior patterns of the people, and how can we actually make lifestyle changes to be able to contribute our bit towards environmental conservation. And in that context, Mission Life training module developed again with the UNDP support and UNICEF, and working with civil society people. And it has been amazing experience for last couple of years working on these two projects. And I actually didn't realize that this could be we were working together, but from that perspective, that it can be a sort of a government, industry, civil society, academia partnership. I didn't realize that, but actually it was. And that's why I forgot to mention. Thank you very much for inviting me again to talk about it. But this is what the life is all about, and this is what we've been working. And I say environment and development are two sectors where you can't work in isolation. Gone are the day. It's a area of collaboration. You need to take help of each and everybody. A single organization, single person cannot achieve. Even government, almighty governments cannot achieve alone the objectives. You have to work with people and society and academics. Then only we will be able to, achieve our objectives. So that's what I want to say. Thank you, Karan, for calling me again.
How can I forget that? We are also a part of it, and it's our privilege to be working with EPO and UNDP on this project, and we look forward to a lot more to do, because I think there's so much of need still. A lot has happened, but there is still a need to do a lot more. And that's what the hope of this roundtable has been, is to really start looking at things a lot more deeper and realizing that everyone has a role to play. There is no big or small. In that sense, I agree with Sudarshan that we need to be humble and understand. And that's why the PICO model also brings in the citizen, which is the people who are on the ground. It's not only the donors, right? It's not only the vendors who have the solutions, or the people who have the money. It's every single person is contributing to it, and that's why the PICO structure becomes so critical. So I'm going to close this really over here. I don't think we had any questions as such, but going by the reaction, and I'm sure there'll be so many more people who would want to adopt some of these, would want to partner with a lot of you, and even if we don't partner, we learn the lessons that we can replicate. I think that in itself would be a great opportunity for all of us.